All right, we are good to go.
Hi everyone. Welcome to today's live stream. As we always start these off, if you want to put where you're watching from as people are filling in, Joe will do shout outs as I finish the posting here. And if you haven't seen the marketing post today, we're going to be doing kind of a double stream. The first one will be on color shifting. It's the current exercise that is available on CG Cookie, and I'm going to take you through how I color shift using the color picker and kind of find that bell curve of what generally you can follow. And then the second thing is how to paint this apple realistically. It's really easy, and I'm going to show you how to make something look realistic with just a few touches. And it really comes down to your placement of the highlights. And I'm going to show you how to do that. All right, so if you want to put where you're watching from, Joe will do the initial shout outs.
Start screaming at everybody. Hello! Okay, here we go. Cisco Punch 67 says, hi, Tim and Joe and everyone from Florida. J Mill says, hi from Michigan, and happy International Skeptics Day and make your dream come true day. Oh, it's 2 holidays today? Make your dream come true.
Make your dream come true day.
McMahon says, hey boys, been a while. Good to see you, your friend from across the way. What a day, what a lovely day. Is it a lovely day? It's pretty cold outside, isn't it?
We're in the single digits here in Fahrenheit, and yeah, it's pretty cold.
Jonathan Miller says, hey from Indiana, so are you guys going to win the Powerball tonight? Did you get lotto tickets?
I did not. No. What about you, Joe?
I wanted to, but the site was down, so I was like, meh. Caroline says, hi from Canada. Andrea says, hello from Denmark. And Konstantin says, hello from Russia. And Tigil says, hi from... It's a really long one. Hi from Belgium. Today is a great day. I have a day off work. My lowest shirt finally arrived. Got to spend some quality time with my sister. And most importantly of all, it's CG Cookie Livestream Day. Yay! Or Livestream Day! Joe, you have to yell that part.
Oh, he wrote that specifically.
Yes. Kathy Brown says, hello from Texas. My class schedule allows me to watch this stream now. That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Caraceta says, hello from Mexico. Sither says, greetings from Croatia. EVE says, hey everyone, greetings from Germany. Michael says, hello from Tennessee. Don't get to see many of these live. Glad to be here. Welcome to the stream. Brandon says, hello from Orlando, Florida. I'm actually going to be there soon. Woo! Dunnan Games says, hello from Pennsylvania, I guess. Chris Wong says, hello there from Ohio. Ohio, Chris. Ari Phillips says, good afternoon from Costa Rica. And Kaz Kilroy says, greetings from Canada. Bunko says, hi from Brazil. Ooh, and I think... Oh, no, we got some more. Yilou says, bonjour from France.
Bonjour.
General says, Gruzi? Hi from Switzerland. I probably butchered that. I apologize. I am not here, broadcasting live from Super Art Friendship Group. Oh yeah, they have a stream on Friday. The Super Art Friendship Friendship Group has a stream on Friday, which I'm going to go check out.
It's called Super Art Friendship Group.
I don't know if that's the official title that they've given themselves, but I am going regardless on Friday to watch. Valor says hi from Switzerland. And I think the last one is going to be from Brooke Milton, says, good morning from Queensland, Australia.
Okay. think I am done as well. Oops. Okay. There we go. Hi, officially. Hi, everyone. Welcome to the CG Cookie live stream. I'm Tim von Rueden, and I'm joined by Joe Chico.
Hello.
And today we're going to be doing a double stream pretty much. The first one is going to be talking about color shifting, and it's the current exercise right now. And the second one is going to be dealing with how to paint a realistic apple and how to make it look really good, really fast. It's really easy, and I'll show you how to do that. All right. Before we start, though, I just wanted to quickly say the few announcements for CG Cookie. The first one is there's a contest going on right now. It is the Peppermint Night. If you want to enter that, maybe win some cool loot. It is on our community site at community.cgcookie.com. And there are a lot of like preliminary sketches right now out there, and it's been really fun seeing. Even someone created like a candy world map. That was really neat to see. And I'm just surprised of how many entries there already are. And we still have like I think it's 3.5 weeks for the deadline. So if that's something that intrigues you, you should check it out. We have a current exercise going on right now. It's actually on color shifting, what I'm demoing today. And that exercise will have like an update post on Friday. And I will have the whole step-by-steps on how I did not only the apple, but I think it's a bell pepper, a dice, and I just painted these. I should know what the other one is.
Bell pepper, dice, apple, and
a cup, a mug. Oh my gosh! I like literally just painted this yesterday.
I was like, what was red? I remember something being red.
Right. I was like, so that exercise will go out Friday. We will be at the CG Cookie studio next week, so we'll be live streaming actually from the CG headquarters in Illinois, and you get to see everyone that works with CG Cookie. That will be kind of a fun week. And yeah, I have a lot that I've gotten in the mail recently, so I won't overload you guys since I know we want to get to the stream, but I'll show you 3 things. The first thing is a moleskin journal. This is something that I would recommend to artists that have kind of a hard time drawing every day or finding motivation to draw every single day. This little thing is really nice because for someone even like me that I like to spend a lot of time and effort on one piece at a time, and I'll maybe finish like 3 a month, 3 or 4. But this almost forces me to at least draw every day and get in that habit. And it's been really nice. Admittedly, it's been a lot easier than I thought it would. And it gets me kind of like a warm-up for when I want to do my more time-consuming art. I can just do like a warm-up sketch with this, get my hand in that motion. The second thing is if you helped kickstart Peter Moorbacher's Angelarium, he also had a tier where you could also receive a little sketchbook. And in the sketchbook includes all of his sketches of his majestic angels. And they're really, really well sketched out and detailed. And I almost actually prefer this to the actual book. And I just really like seeing the preliminary sketches. And it came with a neat little metal coin. I think this is a great idea for artists. I think this is something that more artists would look into because his whole deal with the coin is if you bring this to a convention and you meet him, you get 25% off of his prints. And I think that is a genius idea. And I think more artists should do that.
What's on your wrist?
What?
What's on your wrist?
Oh, my gold. My fake gold tattoo.
I was like, did you get a tattoo this morning while you were out?
Oh yeah, I just got gold injected in my skin. Okay. And the last and final thing was I got my sketch from Loesch. This is something that I actually did not know I was going to be receiving in the mail, but it's a traditional pencil sketch of my character Red. But the coolest thing is if you look close up, and I know it's going to be hard to see on the stream, but you can see remnants of her blue pencil work underneath of the pencil sketch. And I had no idea she uses a blue pencil first, and that's something that almost intrigues me to want to try it myself. So, yeah. Next week, I'll share a few other goodies that I got. I got like 8 just sitting over there that I've got in the mail. There was a lot over Christmas, so we will spread it out. All right, let's go ahead and get started on the stream. I'm going to first move some stuff off of my desktop because I have to share my entire desktop since I have to show you guys the color picker today.
It seems a couple people are freaking out about your hair. They're saying, your hair's back.
Yeah, it's growing back slowly. Actually, my hair grows back pretty quick, but I'm trying this thing where I'm going to see if I can grow it out. I have to go through that awkward like bowl shape since my hair is so curly, where it just kind of like afro out and then it'll fall down. But I might get uncomfortable and just cut it off again. We'll see. The other thing really quick is I have a question. I wanted to make sure with 2016 we do a question of the stream. And for you guys to answer it, first put a capital Q before your comment. And the question I have for you guys is, what do you struggle with most? And the reason I'm asking this is because I want to create exercises with Joe that kind of pertain to those specific answers. So if something like shape language is something that you feel you struggle with, we'll try to create an exercise that kind of deals with that subject matter specifically. So hopefully you guys give us some good suggestions and we will try to accommodate those. All right, let me make this full screen and then I will share this out. And as always, if you're new to the stream, if you have any question at all, even if it doesn't pertain to what I'm working on specifically, feel free to ask and we will answer them to the best of our ability. Okay, so I am sharing my screen 1. Let's see, I'm gonna hide. All right, so the first thing that we're gonna talk about is color shifting. Now this is something that is really easy once you get in the hang of doing it, but I felt even as a younger artist myself that when I went into adding shadow and lights, it was really easy just to add black to the shadow areas or white to try to make an area look more in a lit area. And it wasn't until I started kind of dealing and experimenting with color and looking at what other people do on DeviantArt or even on YouTube. I would say specifically Mel Herring, also known as Glitch Puppet, or she used to be Purple Kekleon. I really was intrigued by the way she used color because she never used black or white. And I thought that was really intriguing. And I experimented by color picking her colors that she would use in her piece. And I could see that she would use warm colors for her lit areas and cooler colors for her shadows. And that kind of broke my whole idea of what it meant to use colors for your lights and shadows rather than just using and relying on black and white. So let's see here. I'm gonna first, where is...
Just curious, can someone throw up a link to the actual exercise if you guys haven't downloaded it? You can right now, so that way you guys can follow along.
Oh yeah, I didn't even think about that. This would be a perfect live stream to follow along to. Oh shoot, well next time. We'll remember this for next time. All right, so the middle colors here are our base colors. These are, there's a lot of different names I've been throwing around. You could call them the hue identity or the diffuse color, but these are the base, the fundamental color of what that subject matter is. So I'm going to take these colors. I'm going to put them on the side, actually. It's strange that you can see my whole screen on this one. What was that?
I was going to say thanks, Kaz. Kaz Kilroy already got it, so nobody else posts the link. All of a sudden, it's like 15 of them.
All right, so this is the color picker. I can't zoom in. I hope you guys can see this a little clearly, but we're going to grab that base apple color first. Now we can see the actual properties of the hue, saturation, and brightness, and these are the ones that are very important to focus on. I could almost care less about the other numbers that they give to us. I really just want to focus on the hue, saturation, brightness. So in the case of adding a light to this color, the initial thought would be to go have white here and then mix those two colors and then do an in-between of that and then an in-between of these two colors. And this would be one way of creating a scale. And the same would be true for the stem color. Oh, it's funny. It almost turns like the background color. And this was the old way of, or my old way of creating a color palette using white and black. Only to realize that this was a very boring and basic way of doing it. So I'm going to move this to the side. So instead, I'm going to grab those same base colors. And when we look at our color picker here, here's how I generally choose my colors for my pieces nowadays. When I see my base color, and it's somewhere in the middle, which is perfect, because then we have a lot of room to work with in our brightness and our saturation. I like that. Having your base color be really dark can sometimes be a bad thing, just because you don't have much room to work with. You can go a lot brighter, but in terms of if it was like even here, like very saturated, you can only really move less saturated and brighter at that point. So having a color that's more in the middle it gives you an advantage to play those extremes of going more toward the dark and more toward the light. So in this case, I'm going to first bend it. I'm going to go like here. So I usually go up and left. So I'm going higher on the brightness scale and a little less saturated, because a bright light actually washes out some of that saturation. And then I'm going to bend my hue slider bar slightly toward yellow. I'm not going to go crazy because I want it to feel like it is still affecting that base color, but adding just a tint of yellow creates more interest and a color shift pattern here. So now I'm going to grab that secondary color, do the same thing, up and left, and bend it a little more toward yellow again. Choose OK. And that's how I choose my light value range, or my color range. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the shadow, but instead of going up and left, I'm going to go the opposite. I'm going to go down and right. And I'm going to bend it towards my cools. Lay that color down there. Do the same thing again, down and right, and then bend it toward cools. Now, if you're wondering how far do you push it, like how much do you go up or down, that's something that you learn over time or you experiment. And I almost see it as a personal preference, since I don't really like working with the extremes of a very light bright, or a very high brightness, or a very low brightness. I like kind of working more with my neutrals, and I stick somewhere near the center of the color picker. I think that's why my colors generally aren't that extreme from each other. Even if we look at the lightest color that we chose for the light value and the darkest value here, you can still see we still have more room to work with. And the reason I like doing that is because then if I wanted to add a highlight on top of this lighter yellow color, which we will do for the apple, you choose a very, very light, almost pure white, and you lay it on top. And that's what gives the illusion of this realism, because the light is reflecting off of the apple. And I'll show you how to do that. It's really easy, and you can show realism pretty simply. It's just how you add that texture in the base is almost more important than the highlight. Okay, so I'm going to do, the stem isn't as important just because it's such a low priority on this apple. So just pretty much know that I'm doing the same technique, and maybe I'll do it really quick. So up and left, choose OK. And I'll do it again, up and left. And then go down.
Is there a specific,
what?
Is there a specific percentage that you're going up?
No. I could get technical, but I think if it got too technical, it'd lose some of the fun for color picking. Mm-hmm. But generally speaking, I try to, I guess visually, I always see like a little L, and that's how far I go up and down. And I think I've always kind of stuck to that L. But if I kept it too numerical, I feel like it would lose some of just the spontaneous color choosing, which I really like. All right, so that's how I would choose my color palette, and that's essentially how I color shift. And from here, you can go and, like, let's say you wanted the green to then eventually turn into like a blue. This is where you can have more fun, because then you find the shift between this actually more saturated blue and this very like forest green. And that color shift in between these colors will create something hopefully pretty interesting. And it's when you experiment with color is when you start to find out, oh, I really like these specific palettes next to each other, or working with this color against this color. And over time, then you build up, if you have like a swatches, and currently mine's actually pretty empty because I'm trying to work out a new one, and you'll be able to add these swatches to your swatch menu over here. So then in the future, I really like this blue that we created now. And I know that if I then add this color on top, and then this really saturated blue, we could create a nice little range going from this blue to this more green color. And this would be like the outside of the sphere. So yeah, so going back to our apple, I'm going to now put, I'm going to make this smaller actually. And since I don't have too much green to work with, I'm going to make our base apple sketch pretty large. You know what, maybe I have, let me bring in, I have the exercise results pretty much done. I'm looking for that line art. All right, so I'm going to move the line art of the apple over. All right, so I'm going to enlarge the apple. Put it here. I'll move my color palette slightly over. All right, there we go. I'm going to move this on the other side. Oops. Move this over here. Okay. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to lay the base layer underneath of our apple line art layer. And this base foundation color is the exact same down here, and it will act as this middle hue identity, or why do I keep forgetting?
Diffuse color.
Diffuse color, thank you, of the apple. Now, there's a lot of different ways that you could go and lay in your base layer. Typically, I actually just like to color outside of the lines and fill it entirely, just so I know it goes even underneath of the line art where it needs to be. And then I'll fill in my stem here. Because then from this point forward, and right now I'm using the circle hard edge, that's going to change into the soft edge, but for now, when we're laying out the base, I'm going to use the hard edge. I'm going to grab the magic wand tool, select everything outside of the line art layer, delete it, and erase the excess. Paint bucket could work for this, but sometimes if your edge isn't completely crisp and solid, it'll leave a very strange looking, like pixelated gray where the green couldn't fill in completely. So this is just one way I like to make sure that I'm 100% getting not only to the line art, but even under it. So if there are any areas where there's some transparency to the line art, it's being filled in with our base color. All right, and there we go. So layer 1 is our base foundation. Layer 2, I'm going to mask it out. And if you don't know how to mask, I could do a quick tutorial here. But this is something that I think you guys should get comfortable using. And you don't have to use it all the time, but having that tool in your corner is definitely helpful. So all you do is you make a new layer. And on a Mac, you hold Command, or on a PC, you hold Control. And you click the layer that you want to mask out. Now, in this case, we want to mask out that base color layer that we just did. So I'm going to click that base color layer. And now we have this marching ant selection tool, and it's selecting the entire apple. So then from here, go down on your layers menu to the box with a circle in the middle, and that's your layer mask, or what is the specific name for it? I'm pretty sure it's just masking, add layer mask. So you click add layer mask, and you can see how the marching ants went away, and it then became, it like made the layer have this layer mask with a chain link next to it. So currently we have the mask selected. We want to make sure that we're painting inside of the layer, not in the mask. And we could get more advanced with it. Pretty much you can add white or black to the layer mask. But for now, we're going to stick in just the layer, and I'll show you what that does. pretty much you can only paint inside of that apple or on the layer mask wherever it's white. So then if you wanted to edit the layer mask, you can, but in this case, we won't. We'll just leave it so it masks out the apple. Okay, so I'm gonna now change my brush from being 100% hard into being a soft edge brush. Now, from here, I'm looking at the reference I have of the apple, and we have our light source coming from overhead. I'll do a little sample thing over here. So our light source is coming overhead and from the left.
Your Facebook notifications are going off.
Oh, great. And it's going to land particularly strong here, and then it's going to have a gradient effect around the apple. Now, the way that this apple was photographed is it's on a very neutral plane, and that means that we're going to get some bounce lighting underneath of the apple, because with a light source that's coming overhead, it's going to bounce and then bounce back onto the underside of the apple. So just some things to keep in mind while we're doing this. Now, I could use a hard edge brush and I could like try to blend it out. You can see how this leaves that very definitive edge to it, and it would just take a lot of color picking and blending to create a very smooth looking apple surface. And I could do that. I just find it more efficient to use a soft edge brush and then use a hard edge brush when we're going more into the detailing. So I'm going to go ahead, start to lay it on where that light source would be strongest. And another great tip that I learned while I was in school is try to work large to small. And typically that is referring to your brush size. So I'm going to make it particularly big, and then as we get into more of the areas where it's on the edge or areas where there's more detail involved, I'll make the brush smaller and work them in that way. Now, specifically on the top of the apple is going to be where a lot of our detail and focus is going to be. So first, let me do the rest of the apple, and then I'll zoom in on the top to give you a better example of what I'm trying to say. I'm not going to worry too much about the bounce lighting on the other side. We're going to go over that after. I'm going to grab then my lightest value that we created in our color shifting palette here. I'm going to lay it in where the highlight would be the strongest, but I'm not laying in the highlights yet. I'm going to save the final detail and polish and highlights for actually one of the last things that we do. Okay, so now on the top of the apple, I'm going to grab that second color we have here. And the way that we're going to shade this is it's going to have a lot of contrast, and that contrast is what's going to give the impression of realism. So I'm going to make sure on this side of the, almost like where it's punched in with the stem, I'm going to have this be lighter going out, and then on the other side, it's going to be darker to give that contrast right where that line is, and then that's going to also fade into highlight near the edge. So having this be consistent is really important, because if it isn't consistent, it almost throws off the entire lighting scenario that we've tried to create with the apple. And you'll see how much of a punch this will really give once we add in the highlight. But having a strong foundation first is very important. I colored in some of that brown there, so I'm going to fill it back. I'm going to grab some of the lighter stem color. Give a bit of a variation so it's not just a matte brown color. All right, let's zoom back out here. All right, the next thing I like to do before we get into texturing it is break up the monotony of the lighting. An apple's surface is not completely smooth, so I'm going to grab the colors around the area and just give it some unevenness to it. And I'm going to grab like this color right here, and I'm going to bring it into some of the shadow area. And that's what that unevenness, that like small imperfection, that nuance will give more of a realistic impression as well. Oh, I'm sorry. I probably should answer a question if there is any.
We have like 50.
Oh. All right, maybe, let me think. Yeah, let me do one right now, and then once I do the texturing part, because that'll take like 10 minutes probably, I can answer a bunch then.
Okay. There's this one actually pertains to the layer mask, since you just got done talking about it. It's from Silent Art TV. It says, is it possible to put each color on a different layer, or is it better to keep the shading all on the mask layer for better color blending?
It can really vary. There are some times where I'll have one layer mask, as in what we're doing right now, but then when I go into the texturing, I'll create another layer and another layer mask, and I'll do the texture all in its own layer. So I guess it's however you want to break it up, and you could do it color by color, but that would take a lot of time, and unless if you're like naming every layer, you might get lost in your own layer menu. So try to keep it simple without cutting corners, and maybe have like, in this case, your foundation color on its own layer. So kind of like what we did with this. And then our next layer, we're creating our base value. And then our next layer will be texture. Our next layer after that will be highlights. And our layer after that will be the polish. And however you want to treat it is your own journey, but definitely experiment. And that's a great question.
We have a couple answers to the question as well. It seems like, man, we actually have a lot of answers. But I'll go to the top question. The top question is, what is and how can I be part of the Super Art Friends group? I believe Digital has posted it has +7 on here. It's the third one down on the side. He posted up a link to the Skype chat. So
I have a question specifically for Tijal. How do you say your name? I feel like every time we're saying it, I don't want to be mispronouncing it. I know what it's like to have your name mispronounced all the time. So I want to know specifically, how do you say your name?
Let me go. Yeah, there's a lot of people that have different struggles. We'll do all of those in a bit. Sketchbook Pro versus Photoshop, which one is better?
I don't think either is better than another. I think softwares are comparable, maybe technically, but I feel like comparing those isn't fair because it's however the artist uses it. Maybe for some artists, Sketchbook Pro, they swear by it, but then others, it would be Photoshop. I feel really comfortable in Photoshop, but I can understand that it has limitations, and there's other softwares that have things that Photoshop doesn't, but they also are missing things that Photoshop does have. So I don't think it's ever good to just say one software is the best one to have. Okay, so now I'm at the point where I'm going to go ahead and start texturing it, because as you can see, this looks a little muddy and blurry. And that's because for the foundation, I didn't want it to be detailed. I didn't want it to have a sense of texture yet, because that's what we're going to do on this new layer. So once again, with masking, I'm going to make a new layer, hold Command, choose the base foundation layer, mask it out, make sure I'm painting in the right layer. And we are. So now I can go ahead and start texturing this. Now for the apple, I'm going to actually zoom in my other screen here, so I can see for sure. So on the texturing, the apple that I chose, I think it was a Granny Smith apple, and it had a lot of these like, oh, you know what? Maybe I'm going to use a skin brush actually for this part. Yeah, okay. It has a bunch of these like oval shapes going down the apple itself. And I wouldn't have drawn the apple with these if I didn't have that reference right in front of me. So having that direct reference helped me see something about the apple that I wasn't able to see before. And this will definitely add a greater sense of realism. So while I'm texturing this, and this is going to be a lot of like small brush strokes, typically circular strokes, and then I'll do like a larger texture brush, almost like a stamp on it, and that'll give it that surface texture to it. But while I'm doing this, we can definitely go ahead and answer a few of the questions.
Joseph D asks, "Hey Tim, do you or the CG Cookie team have any plans to go to the conventions on the West Coast?"
Possibly. I've been talking to one of my roommates about going to SDCC, so I might hit up California. We'll see. I know this year I was going to take a little bit of a hiatus from cons. Last year I did 13, and this year I think I'm signed up for 5, but they're all particularly in the Midwest. I definitely see myself in the future going to California at least once a year for a convention. I don't know if it'll be San Diego Comic-Con. There's a big anime one down there, and I would really like to go to that one every year as well. But yeah, this year I don't. What?
Anime Expo, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah, sorry. It's called Anime Expo. But for this year, I don't know for sure. I'll let you guys know if I am going to San Diego Comic-Con, because maybe I could meet up with a bunch of artists. I really like meeting artists and just having it be organic and like go get dinner or something after one of them. So yeah, I'm definitely open to that.
Is Spectrum in California this year?
Oh, that's right. What am I saying? Spectrum is the weekend of Halloween. It's literally, I think, the 29th, 30th, or 28th, 30th, something. It's like right before Halloween, and it's in California. I think it's in Los Angeles, and I will for sure be there. I don't know what it will take for me to get there, but I will be there. So if you are in that area, if you don't even know what Spectrum is, I would check out, it's called Spectrum Fantastic Art Live. It's my favorite convention every year. It just, you can feel the energy. It's almost impossible not to feel inspired after you leave this convention. And you get to meet a lot of these really renowned, great artists. And I think not only seeing their work in person is impressive, but feeling them out as an artist and seeing how humble a lot of them have become, and to realize that they're just people like we are. And they were in our shoes once, and they wanted to succeed and be the best that they could be. And it's kind of like you get to see, it's almost like a weird mirror of what you could be in the future if you work at it. And I love this convention, so I will definitely be there as well. And I'm pretty sure I'll drag Joe.
Oh, I'm going for sure.
Yeah. I love it. I really, really, really love Spectrum.
Got to go talk to Ian McKagan, taking a selfie with him. He's my hero. Cisco Punch 67 says, "Is it Epic Loot?"
Epic Loot. It is $300 and a subscription to CG Cookie for a year. And I'm pretty sure second and third, I believe it's 150. Don't quote me on that, but yes, it is pretty good loot if you win the prize. And there's a community prize as well, and I'm pretty sure that wins some cool loot as well.
You can quote me because it's 1 year citizen membership, $200 gift card to Amazon.com for gold. I'm reading it right now.
Perfect.
3-month citizen membership for silver, along with a $100 gift card. And then bronze is 1 month membership with a $25 gift card. And then Community Choice Award is a one month citizen membership.
Perfect. Really quick, when you're doing the detailing, don't avoid the edge. Or that's right, I can't go outside of the mask. Don't avoid the area right next to the edge. Even like split some of the detail in half of where it would round around the apple. It gives the impression that this is an object that is three-dimensional. And if you only do the detail like near the center, it kind of loses the effect that this detail would spread and sprawl around the apple. So don't be afraid to add detail right up against that edge.
Sam Walker asks, "What exactly is fantastical lighting? Is it typically lighting for fantasy scenes based on hue shifting, or can it be used for photorealism as well?"
It's actually a term that I made up. It's pretty much I'm assuming they're talking about the fantastical intuition, or is it just fantastical lighting?
It just says fantastical lighting.
If you're talking about just lighting specifically, pretty much it means that it's implying a realistic way of handling lighting, but the way it's landing on the object is fantastical. The apple is probably not the best example. Let me see. Let me pull up an example really quick. I think, one of the best artists at doing that is Sakimi-chan. Almost everything she draws has the illusion of it being a realistic lighting because the lighting's handled realistically, but the way it's landing everywhere on the subject matter is unrealistic. And that gives it the fantastical lighting. Here's one of my examples that I can actually show. This is my red illustration, and you can see how it's treated realistically. Oops. But then in areas like the backside of the leg here is very unrealistic, or even the way that it's falling upon this box. Even though it's realistically rendered, it's unrealistically lit. And that's what gives it a fantastical lighting. Typically, it's just to add contrast. Like on the other side of this boot, oh, this is a really pixely image. This red that I added on the other side of the boot was just added to give contrast to this boot and really crop it out from the boot in the background. Otherwise, they would kind of blend together too much. So I wanted to emphasize that edging with a lighter value here. And that's typically what is referred to as fantastical lighting.
All right, I'm going to throw some of these cues our way.
All right.
First one is from Dun Games. Says, sketching basics. Literally have not tried to draw since I was 8.
Was that all of it?
Yeah. So they would like to see like a sketching basics, which.
Yeah, we can definitely do that. Because then even I'm working on a traditional. Well, I haven't started recording yet, but I definitely have it planned on like the difference between confident sketching and chicken scratching. I used to do chicken scratching all the time, and that's pretty much like, let's say I wanted to create an arm right now. Chicken scratching is where you use like a lot of lines to create your form because you're not confident with doing longer, bold lines. And then this gives the impression of an arm, but it's very, whenever I see something like this, I think they weren't confident in what they were doing. They were scared. So a more confident line would probably be slower. And even myself, I feel like I do rely too much on short strokes, and I should rely on longer, powerful strokes. I think it would be a little easier if I had a Cintiq. I don't want to chalk that up as an excuse, but I do feel when I'm working with paper, my lines are definitely stronger than when I'm working on my tablet. Something like this would be a bit more confident. And that's not to say you can't have like a really rough warm-up sketch. If you're doing a warm-up sketch though, like keep it really fast and fluid and let your shape language and dynamics kind of take over. And this is not considered chicken scratching. This is considered your preliminary flow. And then on top of that, you'd probably make a new layer and then edge it out cleanly. And that's one way. There's so many ways of doing line art and like your initial sketches. So I think we could do something specifically on that.
Megan says, fabric, the bane of my existence.
I love fabric. I love working with fabric. So we can definitely do another fabric one.
Mace says, textures, exclamation point.
I had a whole material and texture course planned and I got half of it out. But then the more I talked to the crew and the more that I really looked at what I was teaching, I feel like there's a better way to teach materials and textures. So I'm going to revamp that whole thing. And then we're going to go very strong into it so that I can showcase specific materials and texture like leather or glass. So that is something that is for sure planned in the future.
May also says, drawing from imagination and people.
Yes. Drawing from imagination is definitely an interesting one. I do feel like there's so many benefits to using reference, but there is something to be said about just trying to be creative from your imagination and getting it down on a personal level rather than it being so technical. So I definitely think we could do an exercise based on that. And then what was the second one? People?
People.
Yeah, people that's my favorite subject matter to draw. So it'd be weird if I didn't have an exercise on that this year. So thank you for your suggestion.
There is actually a book that I have that's really good about both of those subjects. Hold on, let me find it. I need to figure out who wrote it. I think it's called Freehand Drawing Sketching. Let me see. Let me open this up.
While Joe's doing that, really quick, if you make this brush size really big and you lay it down, you can see how it gives that very porous texture to the apple, and that's exactly what I'm looking for. So even though this is called a skin brush, it has like a multi-use because I know it gives off this texture. So the more acclimated you become to the brushes in your pack, the more you can be like, oh, I have a perfect brush for this that I've used before. And in this case, I know that the skin brush gives that porous texture that I would want to put on this apple.
I have way too many books.
Tell me about it. I'm sitting next to a library down here.
Right. Man, it's a really good book too. Figure Drawing Without a Model. That's what it's called. And it is by I'm gonna put that in the description.
Oh, here's a good spot. Hold on. Let me make another new layer really quick. Okay, I want to add a lot of these dot textures to the underside of the apple, but initially when I laid on the dot, it was way too strong. And this right there is a distraction. There is so much contrast going in that your eye is continually being led down to this little dot. And that's not the impression I want to give at all. If anything, I want it to be very subtle. So be aware of how hard you're pushing on the tablet when you're laying in detail, because sometimes it might be a point of interest when you don't want it to be. You just want it to add a subtle texture to it.
I'm going to ask this, or this is a cue, and then I'm going to run to the bathroom really fast. Jet says, could you please talk about the importance of relativity within figure and space, like connection in the figure and the space around it? I'm bad at explaining. Also, any internships available with you guys? Very interested.
All right, let me tackle that first one. You have to open it though so I can read it. Please talk about the importance of relativity. Yes. All right, so there's two ways that you could treat this. It's if your figure is in orthographic or a perspective view. When it's in orthographic, you can almost have it read more flat. This is something that if you don't know what orthographic is, I would look it up on Google, but pretty much I learned this term when I was doing 3D modeling in school, and it's the idea that there's no perspective on it. So if you had a figure, let me think of the best way to explain this. I'll do a visual. All right, if you had a figure that you were modeling, in orthographic view, everything would be facing toward you. You couldn't see underneath of the chin. You couldn't see the top of the shoe. Everything would be facing you. But then if we moved this into perspective and our camera angle was in the center, then we'd be able to see probably a little bit more under the chin, and we would definitely be able to see on top of the shoe. And everything in between would have a perspective to it as well. So when I think orthographic, I think flat, but that doesn't, I know that that term's usually associated with like a negative connotation, but I draw almost everything in orthographic view for like swordplay and stuff. That red image that we were just using as an example is very orthographic, whereas perspective would have a feeling of depth and something being closer to the camera or further away based on the object, and if it's a larger coming closer to the camera or smaller as it is further away. But in terms of the space around it, let me make sure I'm reading this right though. I'm assuming you mean having a presence in the atmosphere around it. So typically I like to soften the edge. Like on the apple, we're going to actually soften the edge near the end to give it more of a realistic presence. I think having a very cut edge to it can be distracting because then it doesn't blend in with the background. Try to have the background and the subject matter have somewhat of a mutual relationship, even if it's not a very drastic one. But even against a neutral gray background, having some of that blurred edge or having a cast shadow, something to give the impression that the subject matter is in that scene. Are there any internships available? Not currently. Right now we're actually, well, we're meeting up next week. We're hoping to do a project over the next year-ish. So there might be a few opportunities with that project depending on what we would need. But if there are anything, if anything kind of comes up or becomes available, I will definitely let you guys know on the stream. All right, the last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to grab one of my texture brushes. I'm going to make a new layer. Mask it out. Oops, was I doing that on? Okay, let me merge that layer down. All right, so now all of our texture is on one layer. But on this layer, I'm going to make this brush that I have here, this really sporadic texture brush, really big. I'm going to softly lay it on. And I'm going to turn the layer's opacity down afterwards. And I know it kind of looks crazy right now. When you turn the layer's opacity down and have it just read very, very subtly, it'll help that realistic effect. Right now it's a little too low. I'm gonna go right there. So when I turn that layer on and off, you can barely even see it, but it's definitely felt. All right, I'm gonna zoom out. Sometimes when you zoom in for too long, you can't see the mistakes in your image. It's looking pretty good. I'm gonna go ahead and hide that line art layer. And I can see, okay, there's definitely areas where I need to round it out more. So on one more new layer here, I'm gonna round it out. Because sometimes when you are working with a line art, you can't see how it would look without the edges. And sometimes that's why things that are in line art feel a bit flat. I'm gonna go ahead and just grab a soft edge brush and round out some areas. I'm gonna actually add in that bounce light right now. And since we're using gray as kind of the color that this object is sitting in, I'm gonna have some of that color bleed into the apple as well. Because the light would actually pick up some of that gray and it would bounce it back onto the apple. Okay, so now we're kind of at a point where the apple's starting to look all right, but there's something that is like demanding to be focused on, and that is the highlight. So right now, I'm gonna go ahead, I'm gonna zoom in so we can really see what I'm doing here. Make a new layer, mask it out, and I probably should be naming these. Creates good habits. I'm gonna make my brush really small, and I'm gonna grab not even this color that we chose for our color palette, but I'm gonna actually make it even more drastic, like closer to white. I'm gonna put that on our color palette here, put it way up here. Because for your highlights, I would recommend using a color that is closer to white. You don't have to go pure white, but having it be closer is probably the best. I'm working really small because I don't want that highlight to bleed out. I want it to read very strong against wherever I'm placing it. And I'm working around the rim here of where the apple is being punched in from that stem. And if you remember what we talked about earlier with that contrast, this is what will help create that. And as I guess I could answer another one while I'm building up the highlight here.
All right. Imad asks, how do you make people like you?
You don't. You just be yourself, and you hope, or you don't even hope. You'll naturally gravitate toward people that you would want to hang out with, and then the people that would want to hang around your personality will be attracted to you. It's kind of like a gravitational pull of personalities. At least that's how I always felt when I was in college. Like the people that you really want to be friends with or you shared similar interest with, one way or another, it would come about and be whether like one discussion while you're in class about a video game that they really liked or they bought recently that you are really into, and then you speak up, and that's how you start the conversation. And yeah, and just be nice to people. Don't be toxic. I think there's too much of that in the world. I think it's definitely lessened in the past few years, especially with the PC era of everyone, being anti-bully and all that. But I think you genuinely have to make an effort to be nice to other people, even when you might not be in the best of moods, or at least not letting people show that you're having kind of a bad day. And I think that's what will get people to quote unquote like you.
Yeah, I think the word is approachable. Be approachable.
Yeah, and smile more.
Yeah. And laugh. But
Yeah.
not the crazy kind of laugh, not like the I'm up to something laugh.
Cackle.
Good. I'm gonna go over some more cues. Caroline says rendering and designing hard surface, especially mechanical things and armors.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one that we could dive into.
Evie says, be the person you want to meet.
Be the person you want to meet. Unless if they turn out to be like horrible in person.
Right? It's like
if you meet them and they give, I guess, yeah, when we went to Spectrum, when I met Alan Williams, it was like, you are the epitome of how I want to be viewed when I'm older. And hopefully I can give off that same essence of being very warm to people that I've never met before and have them feel comfortable asking questions and stuff like that. All right, let me zoom out on this highlight. All right, we're getting there.
Tigil says, Tim, please stop. It's too realistic. My mouth is watering. I want an apple right now so bad.
Well, I give you permission to eat an apple. If I could hand you this apple, I would hand you it to you.
Little bit of trivia. Joe is allergic to apples. Along with many other things.
Actually, here's a good question for you guys. Maybe this is too off the cuff, but like, do you guys even like green apples over red apples? I feel like I have never met someone that would rather have a green apple over a red apple. I feel like I'm kind of in between. I like both, but if I had to choose, I feel like I would grab a red apple. I don't know. I just feel like green apples are so
green apples are more sweet, aren't they? Or sour?
sour. Yeah.
Yeah. I prefer green apples.
If you could eat them.
If I could eat it. I used to be able to eat apples. Dunham Game says pears or GTFO. Cisco Punch 67 says they sell apples at Subway. Just kidding. Don't they sell apples at Subway?
They do not.
I thought they sell them in like little packets for kids. Or is that
Oh,
McDonald's?
they do. They have the sliced apples. That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, and those are green. Good call.
Yeah.
Forcing kids to eat sour apples.
I am not. Asks Tim, why are you a cinnamon roll?
Why am I a cinnamon roll?
When did you become a cinnamon roll? It just like cuts to your camera and then just the cinnamon roll sitting on your desk talking to everybody.
It's literally just like a cinnamon chair on the chair, or a cinnamon roll on the chair. If I was a food product, I would probably be. Well, I don't know. That's a weird question to think about.
That is a weird question.
I guess it would be what I eat most, maybe. So cereal or kale or SpaghettiOs.
I'm trying to think of
A Subway sandwich.
what food I would pick to represent you. That's a tough question.
I'd have to think about that one.
We have so many questions going off right now. Not from people, but we're asking the audience.
Oh, really quick. I think I'm at the point. Okay, I'm gonna put all these layers in a folder. Now, this is typically what I do. I don't know if this is what I would recommend, but it's become like habitual for me to always do this. So I'm gonna put them all in a group. I'm gonna merge that group down with Command E or Control E on a PC. And now everything we just did is on one layer. I'm gonna copy that layer and then undo so that I have all the previous work that we just did, but then paste. What that does is it gives me a copy of everything in the group, but it's on one layer. And the reason that I'm doing that is I'm starting to get to the point where I want to do the final touches. And to do that, I really want to smooth out and add kind of a blur around the edge. And it's much easier to do that on a single layer than multiple layers. Oh, you know what? I forgot to even add the cast shadow. You know what? I'm going to do that before we go ahead and finish this off. So I'm going to make a new layer underneath of our apple, and I'm going to add in a shadow. All right, now I can answer a question again. Sorry.
Going down the list. Looking for a good question.
When you're doing the cast shadow, try not to have it overly dark and have the darkest part of the shadow be like right underneath of the apple. And not only will that add a really cool contrast, but it gives the impression of the light going around the object, and that's why the shadow is not as dark in this area out here, but it's really dark right underneath. And that's another easy way to make an object feel really grounded to the setting that you have it sitting in.
Diamond George asks, this is actually directed towards Tigil. It says the Skype link isn't working. Is there a community post about this? I believe that there is a community post. I'll link that in the description of the YouTube as well. Say No Morsa asks, Dennis and I were discussing using your real name or an alias as an artist, one who is interested in a professional career. I posted a discussion about it on the community, but we wanted to hear your thoughts also. Which has more value to you?
Wow, this is actually a question I've talked with my friends like numerous times about, so it's kind of funny it's being brought up here. I think the conclusion that we all kind of decided on, because we wanted to have kind of a collective thesis on this, was if you use your real name, there is no way that you can ever regret it. Like even in 10 years, if you, for whatever reason, wanted to change up your alias online, you can't be ashamed of using your real name before that. But if you use a made-up name, a nickname, something that is supposed to represent you, you have to be very certain that that's what you want to represent you for an extended period of time. I even have a roommate actually right now, and I've talked to her about this specifically because she wanted to change it back to her real name, because right now it's the name is Hardshell Art, but she would rather go back to her actual name. But to do that, now that she has more of a background with this name, all the pieces that she's done for the past 10 years have this specific name in the corner. It's in her, it's like everywhere. So if you knew this artist, you knew them by the specific name. If you went and changed that, it can create a lot of confusion. And then you'd have to go back and maybe edit some of the older pieces so that it's no longer the old username, but now it's a new one. So my word of advice is try to keep it. Personally, I would actually like to keep it more with your name, or include your name somehow in the new name that you're given. That's not to say it doesn't work if you do it the other way. I could think of like Zeronis, Glitch Puppet, Feverworm. There's a lot of artists that I follow that have these aliases, and it works, but they've established themselves with that name. For them to change it now would be a little difficult. Even with Glitch Puppet, her old name, Purple Kekleon, she had to make a post about it and really explain that this is her new name, is what she's going to go by. And it becomes tough once you publish something, having that old alias in a published format and then changing it, it becomes very difficult. So personally, I would say try to keep it somehow attached to your name somehow. All right, so now that I got the cast shadow, I'm going to go ahead and soften the edge on our apple here. I'm going to do that with our smudge tool. And I know this is typically seen as like a big no-no in the art community if you've heard things about the smudge tool. But this is one of the ways I actually think the smudge tool works very well, because you're not using it for blending. I've seen it work though for blending. One of my old college friends, she used to use the smudge tool for blending, and she used it like a paintbrush, and it was very interesting, but she used it in a manner that didn't make it look smudged or messy. It looked very professional. So there are ways that you can use some of the tools that are kind of seen as like big no-nos, even like burn and dodge. But in this case, just to soften an edge, I really like using the smudge tool. And we could do like a Gaussian blur filter, but I don't want it to really affect the center of the apple too much. And having the control of the smudge tool, I can really define where I want the edge to be smudged in a little bit out of focus. And then wherever it becomes a bit bumpy, or any area that I feel like is kind of distracting, I'm just using the eraser tool and I'm just erasing it out. And then I'm going to go back to that smudge tool and finish this out. All right, so while I'm doing this, we can sneak in another one.
Apparently, the cinnamon roll means you're a sweet person, too gooey good for this world. I think he was asking why you were such a nice person, as in, how are you so sweet?
Oh.
I guess it's an internet term. I have never heard of that before, and
I consider myself pretty far removed from the internet terms. I'm always like surprised when I hear a new one, and I'm like, what? Oh, that's a thing. It's like, yeah, I would have had no idea that was a name.
Roberton asks, how many years experience do you have in digital painting?
I did not actually have a tablet until I was 19, and then I didn't really like fully start experimenting until like mid-19. So I am 26 now, so probably around 6.5 years. I would say when I was really getting more serious with it, probably maybe like 5 years experience. But whenever someone's going to digital painting for the first time, I call it a 3-month hump that they have to get over. And it's the idea that you have to adjust from working down and where you're looking at and what you're drawing to now looking at your monitor and having a hand-eye coordination from what you're drawing and what you're seeing, and your hand movement and what you're drawing, I mean. And that does take about 3 months typically. From the students that I taught, it seemed to be about 3 months. So yeah, there's definitely things that I want to explore more with digital. I really need to get a Cintiq. I really, really want one, and I think that'll make sketching and doing lines easier. But for doing things like this apple, I definitely think a tablet is perfect for something like this. And who was I just talking to recently where they were asking, I mean, I know I'm kind of deviating away from the question, but the idea of, is a tablet better than a Cintiq or is a Cintiq better than a tablet? I think each of them have its own benefits. And I think Cintiq is better for like line arts and doing more precision work, where using a tablet is a bit better for shading and doing texture stuff. But who knows? I don't feel like I have enough experience with the Cintiq to give a solid opinion on that yet. So I think I'm going to get one in either late February or March. So after that, I'll be able to give kind of a better theory about which one or why I like one over the other, or what are the differences I noticed. All right, let me zoom out on this apple here. All right, I think for maybe like another 8 minutes, I'm just going to detail certain areas around it, try to round it out even more, and try to pop in a few questions before we start closing off the stream. Joe?
Yeah, I'm looking for questions. There's a lot of Apple discussion.
What's the general consensus?
I'm seeing a lot of green.
Really?
Yeah, a lot of people are saying green. There's a couple reds here and there.
I wonder if that's just like a Midwest thing that I've noticed. I don't know.
Oh, I just clicked it and it disappeared. Oh, Dun and Game says, appreciate the stream, by the way. New members, so first one watched. Find it useful, and I like the Q&A. More of a Blender guy, but want to learn it all, so you're stuck with me for a bit.
Well, awesome. I never feel like I'm stuck with anyone.
I was like, wait, you're stuck? We're stuck with you, or you're stuck with us?
You're stuck with us.
Bunko asks, how do I improve my shape language?
Ooh, actually, this might be a good question for you, Joe.
Oh, man, there are so many ways to improve shape language. What I would recommend doing for starting off would be studying other artists' shape language that you enjoy. Shape languages, there are universal shapes that define certain looking objects. So like sharp angles define villains, like in Disney. Disney does a really good job on shape language, along with Pixar. Most animation studios do a really good job on that. But I would study from those and break them down into their simplest of shapes. Paul Richardson also has a really good tutorial called Wield and Weld at his website called autodestruct.com, where he talks about putting shapes together and combining them to make new shapes. I would highly recommend checking that one out as well. But yeah, his name's Paul Richards. He's the guy who did what's that book that I was looking at the other day? Substrata. He was the curator for that book. He worked for the Darksiders books as well. Really, really smart guy. Has tons of lectures, and they're all really good, and they make you think about other ways of, like, other ideas of approaching art and stuff like that. So that's some things you can do for shape language. Yeah, someone else is saying, I would like a video dedicated to shape exploration using shapes to create strong character designs. And that was from Mikhail Barker.
I think what we're doing with tutorials right now that are on the flow for the 2D side is we're going to revamp some of them, especially the earlier ones. And one of them specifically is explore a shape language and creating form. So I think an exercise in that flow would be perfect for creating strong characters with shape language. So it's definitely one that we'll write down. Oh, wait, there is something I can do to the apple that I can show you guys. So right now, this is the base that we have for the apple. I'm going to go ahead and create a new layer. I'm going to make it an overlay layer. Now, this is something that I feel like I abuse a bit, but if you use it cautiously and minimally, it can be incredibly effective. So I'm just going to grab our base green that we were using. Actually, no, I'll grab the second one. And I'm just going to like brush over the highlighted areas. And you don't know, I will grab that base green instead. I'm going to erase what we did. Yeah, it's a bit richer. And I'm just going to kind of punch the areas of near the highlight and maybe subtly in the shadow. I don't want to go too much. Actually, no, I don't want to go too much in the shadow. And if we turn that layer on and off, you can see the difference that it makes. But when you add too much of an overlay, like even right now, I feel like it's a bit too much. It can start looking too digitalized. And I guess the more that you work with digital art, there's a point where it becomes too drastic in like colors that are unrealistic in a traditional sense. Where before the apple feels realistic, but the more edits, it's kind of like an Instagram. When you add too many filters to it, it kind of loses that natural look to it. I guess that's the best comparison I can think of. So I want it to be more subtle, and I could even do a slight multiply layer. This is typically what I do at the very end of a painting. So I try to avoid using multiply and overlay through the actual process of creating the object, and let my like foundations be as strong as they can possibly be. And then at the end, try to add like a finishing touch of a multiplier overlay layer. You can see before and after. It's a very subtle effect, but I think it's one that works well. When I do that, you can see how the bottom of the apple, we get this like weird white line, and that's because of the masking tool. So now I'm gonna probably have to go back and re-blur or re-smudge that out. And if I wanted to do that, I would have to do this again. I don't mind doing. Move the apple back on its shadow. And even if I didn't want to smudge it, if I just wanted to like legit erase that white line, I could do that too. But sometimes when you use the eraser tool with a hard edge, it creates it literally creates a hard edge, and I don't want that for the edge of this apple. I wanted the focus to be more where the highlight is, and having such a contrast down here could be distracting. So I'm going to first erase some of that bottom edge, and I'm going to choose my smudge tool. I'm just going to soften it out. Okay, and there's our apple. And then from here, if you wanted to add in kind of an effect of like the background being more white, let me hide the other layers that we have going on here. What layer is it? Sun on. There we go. This is actually a great example where you can see how we lose some of the effect with the highlight because it lessens the contrast between the background and the highlight. So I'm going to actually turn this layer down so that we can still see the contrast of the white on the top of the apple versus the gray of the background. And I'm going to make some of the area that's sitting on slightly darker too. This just gives more of an impression of depth to our object. There we go. There's our apple. All right. Should I do my last pass through here?
I have two. I have two questions lined up.
Oh, okay. Maybe I'll just keep detailing the apple then.
All right. Jackie C says, I've stayed awake during the whole stream. I've fallen asleep during the last two due to fibromyalgia fatigue. This demo was super helpful for me too.
Awesome. Well, I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, that's great. Also, if you fall asleep and
Yeah, that's great.
yeah, sorry, that was very rude of me. I apologize. But what you can do is after the stream is over, I don't know if you guys know this, but these videos actually come up on YouTube, and you can watch the streams afterwards, and they actually date back the last couple of years that Tim's been doing these. And that's also going to lead into the next question. which was, are you ever making a stream about doing studies? And there's a stream that we had on skin a while back. I'll link it in the post. And it talks in that one we talked a lot about doing master studies and whatnot. Do you remember that one?
Oh yeah.
God, I feel like such a butt after saying that.
No, you're good. I think it's one of those things where you say it with that, maybe like you hear it after you say it and you're like, oh, that sounded really bad, but I had no impression of that wanting to be bad.
Yeah, sorry. Okay. Those are like the last two that I wanted to hit. And I mean, you're gonna be sifting through a lot of questions, by the way. So.
Oh boy. All right. Okay, if this apple would be outside at night, how would that change the look of it? Is it an easy fix? This is a great question, and I think since we have like 7 more minutes, I'm going to take the time to answer that. And because digital is awesome. Okay, so if this was a night scene, let's say it was particularly dark, I'm going to choose a very desaturated color. And this apple was sitting outside, it'd be very strange having it be lit like this if the scene around it was this color. I could even go darker with this, actually. Something like that. And let's pretend that that background thing is the moon. So this thing is, the apple is outside. And I've seen a lot of different ways that people treat how you can make this look like it's outside fast. The one that I would recommend, I think, let me see if this is the way that I liked, is choosing the color and like fully covering it, but then wherever there's like a highlight, wherever that light source is coming from, kind of bring some of the color back. And then to match kind of that darkness that we have going on here, I would actually choose a multiply layer. But this is very tricky. I don't think there's a really good way to do a quick fix on something like this. I would actually want you to start off painting the apple with a different color and lighting scenario so that it fits the scene that you're working with. But this is just one way of, like, if it's on the fly, if it's for concept art, it can definitely be a little quick looking. But the other thing is, let me go ahead and hide that background. Or actually, I'll keep the background there. So if this is our background color, I just watched, or I followed a tutorial on DeviantArt that I think is perfect for this type of scenario, where you take your base color and you take the background color, and in this case, it's that blue. And what you do is you mix the two together. And their idea would be that this becomes your new base color. So if you can remember how we use that green for the base color on the apple, now imagine if this was our base color on the apple. And that way, the background element is being incorporated into the actual color of the subject matter that you're working with. And I really like that one. I feel like I want to experiment with it more, but that's one way of doing an object in a different lighting scenario. All right, let's see here. Oh, there are a lot of cues that are great. There's a lot of people telling me, yeah, there's a meme about being a cinnamon roll. Oh man, someone said that they're gonna cosplay Red at some point. That would be amazing. If you do, please send me a picture of that. That would really brighten my day up. Someone's asking, which exercise do we have on CG Cookie that I would suggest for beginners or for fundamentals? If you wanted one that was a bit more fun, we have a lot of shape exercises on the site right now. And if you guys don't know what the exercises are, pretty much on CG Cookie, and these are all free, so I would definitely recommend checking them out. So pretty much you open cgcookie.com, and on the left-hand side, oh great, it's going to load slowly because I'm trying to stream at the same time. My computer's like, Tim, why are you doing this to me? But pretty much we have, I think there's 41 exercises available right now. Some of them are like when I first started working at CG Cookie, so they're pretty old. But I would say the last 20 are all very solid. And then the ones between like 10 and 20 are all right. 1 through 10 are definitely very experimental in me trying to figure out what an exercise is, because it was something that, you know, we just created out of the blue. So on the left-hand side here of CG Cookie, there's an exercise tab. Oh, geez. Never mind. We actually don't have exercises. All right, this isn't going to work. My computer's being fussy with me right now. But pretty much on the left-hand side, you just click exercises, and there's a filter on the top. So if you only want to see the concept art ones, like you don't want to see the 3D or the Unity ones, you click concept and you'll see all of the concept exercises appear. And there are a lot of them for you to experiment with. So if you're looking for one that's more fundamental, almost any of them I would consider fundamental, but I would choose the one that you particularly want to do, like one that would be exciting for you to do. And if you are more engaged into what you're working on and you're having more fun or you're excited about it, then the result will come out better as well. I'm gonna hide that blue. There we go. That's the apple. All right, let's see if I can find one more here, and then we will cut it off. That apple is appealing. That was pretty good. Oh, I wish I would have done that. Like cut out a slice of the apple to show you how to like slice it open and see the inside. Maybe sometime in the future that will be one of my live streams. Oh, there are a lot of questions.
Yeah.
Someone said Macintoshes are the best Apple, the fruit, not the computer. That was pretty good. Oh man, okay, we're gonna have to look through a lot of these, Joe, because I really want to incorporate the suggestions that you guys are leaving us into the exercises so that it feels like your voice is being heard and we're teaching what you guys want to learn. No, I think we got most of the actual questions. All right, I think we're good.
I'm writing down most of the answers.
Yeah. All right. Oops, forgot to turn the lights on. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming to the stream. We do these every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Central Time. And next week, we will actually be at CG Cookie. And I'm not sure what the stream will be on, but you guys get to meet the rest of the crew. You get to meet the CG Cookie boss man, Wes, and Jonathan Williamson, who's like the lead at Blender Cookie with Kent Trammell. He'll be there too. It'll be a good time. And for announcements, if you weren't here at the beginning, there is a contest going on right now. It is the Peppermint Night. It is something that I'm always excited to see. I look at it every morning. I check the community and I see the new entries, and there's a lot of them. And it's exciting to see what it's growing into. So if that's something that interests you, I would definitely check it out. We have the exercise results coming out on Friday, and that includes a step-by-step on how to paint the apple that we just did right now, along with the other 3 items on the exercise list. And yeah, I guess we're working on a few new things. I think the next exercise will probably be a perspective one done by Joe, and that will go out on Monday. And that's all I can think about at the top of my head right now. Joe, any last words here?
I don't think I can stop the broadcast again.
Why?
Because for some reason, Google Hangout likes to glitch out and not have the ability to select things. Let me see if it will though. I think that's the only thing I relate at. There's so many links going to be on this post. Yeah, it's going to be awesome.
Move this here. Oh, I do have a final remark. I've been watching a lot of like artist advice tutorials or just lessons and lectures on YouTube. There's two in particular that I hope you guys will watch. They're really short. They're like 10 minutes each. The first one is 8 Artists Advice to the Young. It includes one of my favorite, Marina Abramovich, and each of their advice I feel like was really straight to the point, and it was good to hear. And the other one was the best art advice by a YouTuber named Swatches. I've never heard of him before, but I watched it and I really, really enjoyed what he was talking about. An example would be he was talking about how the first 20% of your painting is much more important than the final 80%. And he compared it to pulling back and drawing an arrow, because wherever you aim that arrow, that is relative to the 20%, and then that'll affect where it lands, which is the 80% of the flight. So if you have a precise 20% view of where you want to hit and what you're trying to do, it'll become much stronger than if you did this very, haphazardly, like loose, and you didn't really have a precise aim in the background, than if you were like really tight and you really had to set focus on what you wanted to do. So I really like that comparison. I think he's a great artist, and I'm going to check out more of his videos, but I would check those out as well. And we will post all of these links in the DeviantArt and YouTube page, and probably the community page. I believe so, yes. And hopefully we'll see you guys next week. All right, that's all I got, Joe. We out.
Adios, muchachos. Yeah, I can't end the stream. Exit stage left. Just can you scoot away off the screen? Is that no? That's not stage. That's not stage left. The stage left is the other one.
Come on, let's go to Subway.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Did it end? Oh, we're still going. Oh, but then I can't see the questions. I wanted to read through all these. I'll do a quick copy paste on all of them.
Is there still going?
Yeah. I'll just copy and paste all of these. Maybe if all of you could just leave.
Just everybody go away.
Go. Go create art. Go. Oh, there we go. All right, we're good. Bye, everyone.